Thank you so much for being here today. I think I see some familiar faces that actually attended some of our advisory meetings last school year, so we thank you for participating again. And as you have bear witness, this is an opportunity to share and exchange some critical information as we all work collaboratively to support our commitment to high performance. I only ask that if you would hold until the end of the presentation your questions. We'll be happy to entertain them at that time. You will hear from a series of different departmental division heads. And so again, if you'll just wait until the end, we'll be happy to address your questions at that time. But without further delay, I would like to bring to the podium our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Morcease J. Beasley. Thank you.
Thank you, Jada. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, I know it's been a long day. Can you believe it's the 4th week of school? You might say, yep, it's the Walker Transportation guy says, yep. Well, thank you for being here. I know you've had a long day, and our goal is to share information with you that we think is relevant or pertinent to the role that you fulfill in the district, and that would be the most important role of teaching our students. We're using a presentation that we've designed for all of the various groups, and so if you want to follow the presentation, go to the website. On the left column, there's a link for critical conversation. Click that link and go to the presentation. But if not, those projected here. We won't necessarily hit every slide because, again, it's tailored for various groups, but we'll only highlight the information we think is pertinent to you as teachers today. And in light of time, that will give us an opportunity to share some Q&A with you. So the first thing we'd like to do is remind everyone of the vision. Hopefully you've seen this already. Our new strategic plan is in motion, if you will. It's from 2018 until 2023. The vision statement, the mission statement as approved by our Board of Education basically speaks to us becoming a high-performing school district where all of our kids are growing and competing successfully. Our mission, our everyday work is to empower our students to meet their academic and personal goals. And hopefully you see that all of us, in whatever capacity that we're in, we're supporting this effort. We're supporting this effort. We know that as teachers, you're directly impacting students reaching those goals in the classroom. But the rest of us exist to support what you do in those classrooms. And hopefully you sense that we are supporting your efforts. Our beliefs are very clear. We have just a few of them, but if you notice the beliefs, they're all centered around our children. And we take these beliefs very seriously. Our board adopted these beliefs after a process of really engaging all stakeholders. And I can assure you that every decision we make will be made with these beliefs in mind, that our children have priority for all of our resources, that education is our shared responsibility. It's important that we communicate and we understand each other, realizing that we have a diverse community. Learning is a continuous process, so no matter where we stop today, we know tomorrow we just pick up and we begin. And then, of course, we want to ensure that we create the best learning environment for our students. And we believe that all the adults in the school system have a unique responsibility to ensure that we create that environment. We want our students to believe that we care for them, that we are interested in them, and that we want them to learn at high levels. And, of course, that we respect who they are. So here are the 5 strategic goals as approved by the Board of Education. And you'll see throughout today's presentation that the work that all of us are doing, yourselves included, speaks to us achieving these 5 goals. A strategic plan is just that. It's a strategy. It's a strategy as to how we're going to get to the improved outcomes that we expect to see, that our community expects to see, and that it should see. The first one speaks to academic achievement. Number 1. We know we exist to ensure that our students are achieving academically, that they're prepared for college and careers, that they graduate from high school, and that they're prepared to exercise options beyond high school. And so academic without the role of our teachers. Our second goal is relative to our environment. We want to ensure that it's safe and it's secure. And as you well know, it's been our position that, there are things that we've got to do as support staff. We've got to ensure that we've got the right principals, the right teachers, the trainings in place, the right facilities, and that those facilities accommodate a sense of safety and security. But we also know that all of us individually, including our students, our parents, collectively, we all have a responsibility to ensure that we have a safe environment. In light of all of the mass shootings and all the drama, if you will, that occurs in our world and in our nation in particular relative to violence, we all have to bear some responsibility and do our part. We want to ensure that we have an environment that really promotes active engagement. That's why we try to have these sessions, because we actually listen to you and we take the information back and we inform our conversations, our research, and our decisions, so we can continuously make decisions that are in the best interest of our students and that advance the goals of this organization. We want to ensure that we are providing high-quality support services to our students, realizing that oftentimes students they're well-intended, they want to do well in the classroom, but for whatever reason, there are some factors and variables that impact the outcomes that occur outside of the classroom. And so we're working through support services to mitigate for those impacts. And lastly, we want to ensure that we recruit, develop, and retain. We believe we're doing pretty good with recruitment. We've got to continue to work on retention in our school system, and you'll hear more about that as well. So here's our definition for high performance. And so I believe you've seen this already. If you were involved in any of the pre-planning activities, your principals may have shared this. If not, that's okay. You'll get it today. But we've defined what high performance is for our school system. So oftentimes we say, or last year we said we were committed to high performance, but this year we made a point to ensure that we define what it actually means so everyone will be clear as to what it means. And basically it means the implementation and sustaining of focused and intentional actions that create a healthy organizational culture that consistently results in measured outcomes that exceed prior, predicted, planned, expected, or average outcomes, and one that normalizes improved, gap-closing, achieving outcomes for all students and groups from one measurement or period of time to the next. Bottom line is, every school should be improving. Every classroom should be improving. Wherever the students begin in August, that's okay, wherever they are. But when they finish with that teacher in May, they should be in a better place. Does that make sense? They should be in a better place. And from the role of the superintendent to every other position, we're looking at our data and we're making sure that we implement actions that improve our outcomes at every level. That's why it's so important for us as support staff, as support principals, and teachers, because the expectation is that every student improves. But there are a lot of variables that are at play. And that's why, notice it speaks to a healthy organizational culture. It's so much bigger than one person, bigger than the superintendent or the cabinet, or bigger than any one group in the school system. This work that we're doing is so much about our children. And I often say the adults in the organization determine the health of the organization. And that's why it is so important that the adults create a healthy, collaborative culture where their actions are very purposeful, very intentional toward doing what's good and what's right and what's beneficial, only beneficial for our children. So with that in mind, we're going to pass the mic. We have individuals who are going to help us get through the agenda. And then after that, we'll, again, Jay to share, we'll give you a chance for some Q&A. So we want you to just think about the content, write down your questions, and then we'll be more than happy to engage and to respond to any questions that you may have. So at this time, I'm going to pass the mic to Dr. Warner.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mama Hawaii, the Director of Fine Arts and School Choice. But right now, I'm here to talk to you about the Strategic Improvement Plan. Like Dr. Beasley expressed earlier, that our strategic plan is the essence of what we do, the essence of who we are. So what you have in front of you, you do have a small version of the Strategic Improvement Plan. This is what we publish so that our community has just a brief overview of what we are doing in the district. I suggest, with you being the Teachers Advisory Committee, that you go online and view the full Strategic Improvement Plan, because that is where all of our action steps are outlined. And you can find that on the school district website, on the e-board platform for our school system. But right now, who's coming after me is everyone in our district where their departments support the Strategic Improvement Plan. For example, you will hear from Dr. Lee regarding the data and curriculum instruction and assessment. We really look at that data to determine what are our goals for the next 5 years, what is our vision, our mission for the next 5 years. And all the other departments will support the data and support curriculum and instruction so that we can increase our student achievement across the district. So right now, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lee so that she can discuss some of our data with you.
Dr. Wiley. Good evening, everyone, or afternoon. At this time, I am going to share with you our student performance data for the Georgia milestones, as well as advanced placement and our trend and graduation rate. So the image that you're viewing right now really depicts our goal for school year 2023. And by now, this is not new for you, because I'm sure your schools have been talking about our goals and going through the strategic plan. But performance objective number 1 states that by 2023, we want at least 80% of our students, we want our students performing at least 80% of our students performing at proficient or distinguished on the Georgia milestones in all content areas, including the area of writing, which is critical across all disciplines. Also, we want at least 95% of our students reading at or above grade level. And we know that beyond the numbers, that really speaks to our students' level of readiness once they leave us. So just imagine a school district where at least 80% are proficient or distinguished, a business community, how thriving it will be, the opportunities. And so we have to keep this at the forefront, and this is our 5-year goal. And your principals received an Excel that includes the goals for what we need to make each year to be on track for meeting this 80%. Now the next slide shows where we currently are on average. So when I share with you the Georgia milestone scores, you'll see scores at 8% proficient distinguished all the way up to 38%. But on average, about a quarter of our kids are mastering the grade level content. And yesterday we spent time with some K2 teachers, because anyone here K2? We have our critical conversations, our teacher impact conversations occurring. Tomorrow we have grades 3 through 12. But either way, we were emphasizing to K2 how that foundation is critical, because we know by the time they get to middle and high school, it's challenging. And so I'm going to now show the data. So we'll start with looking at our end of grade Georgia milestones data for our elementary and middle schools. So in the very first table, you'll see the 4-year trend data for language arts. And for this past school year, we saw gains in language arts in grades 3, 4, and 5. You also see our comparison to our metro Atlanta districts, such as Cobb, Marietta City, Gwinnett, Fulton, DeKalb, those areas. So you'll notice you also have the state data. So we have some work to do to close our gap or even exceed the performance with the state in the Emory state. We certainly can do it. Now in the area of mathematics, grades 3rd through 8, we saw gains in grades 3, 4, and grade 7. And again, we're working hard to build the momentum to close those gaps and meet our 80% gain. But do you see the quarter on average? About a quarter of our kids are at proficient or distinguished. So that means at your school level, you have the data to determine who's in the beginning and developing categories. Those are the individual students that we should be really accelerating and using our readiness tools. And the students that are proficient and distinguished, we're thinking of how to push them forward and keep them challenged. and engaged. The next slide includes our science and social studies. In science, we saw growth in grade 8, and in social studies, we saw growth in grades 5 through 8. The next slide includes our high school data. So in high school, we have 8 core courses that have an associated end of course exam. And in high school, we saw increases or sustainability in 6 areas. And so you can see here that we had gains or we sustained in 9th grade lit, geometry, biology, physical science, U.S. history, and economics. And what I've included on this slide is the current reading level. So I know many times when we're asking students to read something, with fluency or even produce something in writing, it can be a challenge. But based on our Georgia Milestones data, over half of our students are reading on or above grade level. Now, are over half performing at proficient or distinguished? No, so there's a gap somewhere. So most of our students can read on grade level based on our state assessment. Reading deeply for understanding, that may be a challenge, but essentially grade level content, they can read with 75% accuracy. And so we have to think about what are those instructional practices that would allow their proficiency levels to mirror their reading and even go beyond. This includes the high school reading data for each high school. So the highlighted column, again, shows you the percent of students who can access grade level content and read it with at least 75% comprehension. And then our advanced placement data, you see the 4-year percent of students making a 3 or higher. We know on the advanced placement, that's the end of year exam for students enrolled in an AP course. The goal is for students to score at least a 3 or higher because many times colleges will accept that as a course credit or a related course. So we have increased the percent of students scoring at a 3 or higher, and I highlighted in green some of the schools that made remarkable gains. And some of those schools included Lead Scholars, Forest Park High School, Morrow High School, Mundy's Mill High School, Riverdale High School, and as a system, we had 3 percentage point gains. So you do notice the gap between the nation and international performance. But we've had more kids enrolled in AP, and we've also had more kids, over 700 kids enrolled in dual enrollment. So some of our high school kids are taking college courses. They're going to a college campus, getting credit, and being able to graduate farther ahead by the time they further ahead for college. A graduation rate, you see the trend, but for school year 2016-17, we're at 69.6% graduating, but we do not have the most recent percent. And we are predicting that it will well exceed this performance. We've been very intentional with utilizing our tools to build that credit recovery for our students. And we're also, for high school, trying to catch them by grade 9. Because what the research tells us, if a grade 9 student fails at least one course, they have a 30% chance of not graduating on time. And so we want to make sure that that grade 9 course that we make, that is strong and kids are having greater outcomes. Okay? So at this time, Dr. Beasley will just speak to you about some of the things we're doing, and then I'll return to speak to teaching and learning.
So, as you saw the data, basically this slide gives us just a high-level view of things that we are doing at the school system. Often I get the question, what program are you doing? And I try to really discourage that and tell people it's not about a program. It's about being very intentional and purposeful with our actions. And so you'll hear today some very intentional things we're doing in teaching and learning. You'll hear about some very intentional things we're doing in school leadership, because those things converge and really create some coherence toward moving us forward. So we saw improvement last year. We've got areas clearly that we've got to continue to work on. We've got many more kids that we need to get reading on or above grade level. And we've got to clearly improve our proficiency rates as measured by the Georgia milestone. But we believe that with our efforts occurring every year, we'll be able to increase and build upon the momentum. So the the first thing we're doing is, as all of you already know, we're grounding our instruction in the best practices. And so we have the instructional framework, and I'm sure all of you spent time the first week of school going through that instructional framework. It speaks to those high-impact practices. It speaks to developing that STEM culture and encouraging the 4 C's: collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, and communication. And we are ensuring that we go deep with those practices across the board, K-12, period, even pre-K. We're focused on literacy, numeracy, critical thinking, and the integration of technology. And so you'll hear about our extending learning beyond the classroom, our one-to-one initiative, where we're trying to make sure our kids have Chromebooks over a period of the next 3 to 4 years. We're trying to ensure, we know our teachers have the laptops, we want to ensure that our students have the opportunity, and once they get the laptop, and even when they're at home, that they have access to work on the skills, the tools, using the tools that are provided to them. You'll see that we're working on redesign and transformation. Even today, we had a conversation, and the question is, we're asking every principal, how are you redesigning your school? How are you redesigning your school to ensure that your school is the best school for your children? Oftentimes, people are expecting superintendents, if you will, or others in the central office to give people a vision for their schools. And I tell principals, that's not my role. My role is not to tell you what your school should look like. I can tell you what expectations I want to see when those outcomes come in, but you got to figure out what that looks like. You got to figure out what will be your focus. If you want to have a theme, you got to figure that out. Get your community engaged in that process. Yeah, we have tools and resources that we provide to all schools, but how are you using those tools? How are you using those resources? To what end are you using those tools and those resources? How are you developing your niche? How are you attracting people to your school? And once you attract them there, how are you retaining those students in your school and advancing and moving those students in the right direction? So we're engaged in redesigning and transforming the district. And you'll hear more about those strategies on today. It's important that you note that we're really into school choice. School choice. And at some point in our district's portfolio, we should see, as we look at the district's portfolio, we should see that every kid in every community has a choice, an equitable choice, wherein their address doesn't exempt them or exclude them from opportunities. That's very important. And of course, we're addressing issues relevant to attendance and discipline, and we're pleased that we're seeing a rise in the attendance. We're seeing decreases in discipline, but at the same time, we're measuring, based on the surveys that you all complete, an increase in morale, which is important, employee and teacher morale. And so we're working to ensure that we improve, refine, or do a little better with the implementation of our strategies. We're also clearly improving our grad rate. Go to the next slide. We're monitoring our performance of our students. You'll see 9th grade is up there because our data suggests to us that if students drop out, most of the time they drop out in the 9th grade year. So if we can get kids through the 9th grade successfully, we will more than likely graduate those students. And so we've got a very intentional, purposeful effort of supporting our 9th graders, monitoring their performance, and ensuring that they recover in the event that they don't do well and they need to earn credit, recover those credits in a timely manner. So you'll see credit recovery. But as Dr. Lee shared, we're encouraging advanced placement and dual enrollment. Honestly, we want to create a culture where our students in this county expect themselves to participate in rigorous coursework. It's one thing for me to expect it or you to expect it as teachers, but we want our students and their parents to expect that if you have access to these resources and these opportunities, then take full advantage of them. Take full advantage of them. Think about your future while you're living today. And we want our students, and so we're pleased that we had an increase of about 700 students last year, and we anticipate we'll have an increase even this year. We're encouraging career pathways. That's important. Our data tells us that when our students are in a career pathway, 93% of the students who are in a career pathway graduate from high school on time. That makes sense then that all students should participate in a what? Career pathway. And that will help us bump up and improve our grad rate. Of course, ninth grade transitions, ensuring that our students successfully transition to high school. And then we're using the Perry Academy, Career Chapter for non-traditional situations. We have some students who are just not going to be successful at traditional high schools because they have life circumstances that they're dealing with. We want those young people to stay in school, but we want to place them in an environment where they can stay in school, but yet deal with whatever else they need to deal with in life and earn their high school diploma. And so, if you didn't know this, last year we changed Perry Academy from a program to an actual high school. It is an actual high school for non-traditional situations. Now, what will that mean for our grad rate? We will see an increase in our grad rate, but they will probably end up having the lowest grad rate of all the schools. But we're okay with that because the point is to help those kids do what? Stay in school and to do what? To graduate. And we understand that sometimes because of decisions that they have made, and sometimes situations beyond their control, they just need that additional support and additional time to earn their high school diploma. So those are some of the things that we're doing. So at this time, I'm going to toss the mic again to Dr. Lee, and we're going to talk very specifically about some of the work that all of us are engaged in relative to creating a culture of high performance.
Teachers, colleagues, how many of you have a copy of this? You've seen it? Great, okay. So the thinking of this came out of what are those high impact or best practices that we should consider when we're planning for student success as well as when we're planning lessons and delivering lessons. And so I'm going to reference some of the practices on here as I go through the rest of the slides. And just a reminder, the 8%. So this image or illustration just shows what components need to align in order for students to master the standards, to be on track for college and career readiness. So we have our Georgia Standards of Excellence, right? And they tell us what students should know and be able to do. In order for our students to obtain that knowledge and be able to demonstrate those skills, the curriculum has to align, right? Essentially, the documents we're using, the resources we're using in the classroom, and the instructional practices or classroom instruction also has to align. And so for each of the core disciplines as well as programs, there are just some common practices that should occur frequently in instruction. And you're on the advisory, so you're familiar. Academic discussions should be occurring. We have to be able to communicate, but not only just discussion in the discipline, but the interpersonal skills. The way we know students are learning, they're either speaking or they're producing a product, right? So when they're speaking, we're able to hear their thinking as well as check their misconceptions. And so one of the high impact practices, of course, is engaging our students in academic discussion. The other one is questioning. Not just from the teacher, we always have to ask the questions. But don't our students need to know which questions to ask? Yes, they need to be the thinkers. They should be critically thinking through the content, posing questions not only to you, but to their peers, because that's what we do as adults when we're collaborating. And what's the third high impact practice? Quiz. So academic discussions, higher order questioning, and what I hear? Thoughtful work, which would include getting feedback, and also the writing, the evidence-based writing, the close reading, engage with that text. So those are not the only practices, of course, there are copious others, but just if you know that you're planning around those three frequently, they've been proven over and over again, over 500 million student studies through Hattie's work, that these are practices that yield more than a year's worth of growth from our students when implemented. So it's not just about you as a teacher owning this. We have to get our students to take responsibility and own it. And on the next slide, you're very familiar with this because we've done the training now district-wide. The rigor and relevance framework allows us to have a common understanding or approach to rigor. And so essentially, the rigor is determined by our standards. It tells us what students should be interpreting and creating. But what piece is most essential, especially for these youth? Relevance. They want to know, why does this matter? How is this today? because Quad D is real world. And when I think about a student learning to drive, Quad A is simply just learning the basics, the signals, the parts of the car, watching someone else drive. Quad B, we're in the parking lot, a safe, confined environment. I'm still coaching you. Quad C, I may move to the back. I'm no longer coaching you side by side. You're having to create and make some decision making. But what's Quad D? Highway 285, rush hour, and it's thunderstorm. So, right, so the students have to be able to recall and apply immediately, right? And so, well, what would happen? A catastrophe, right? And so what we want for our students is to be operating in Quad D more frequently, and we understand it's a process. All quads matter. They do. They're essential that you have the fundamentals. But we do see more of our students operating at A and B comfortably, but when they're situated in a setting where it's unpredictable, it's real life, they pause. They don't have the automaticity. And so we just have to create that, and it may initially be Quad D moments, and then those may become projects and experiences. So essentially, while those are some of the tangible supports and tools, the high impact practices, and then thinking about that framework. How is it rigorous? How is my structure rigorous? But also, how is it relevant? And then this is just a realistic example, you know, because it's real. You have students in your class who have to meet the same expectations, learn the same material, but they're on different levels. And so that's why we try to utilize some technology tools. We have the iReady for reading and math, Achieve 3000, the Odyssey Aware to offer as a supplement, but also the educator. Because the research tells us the teacher is the most important factor. In terms of the school-related factor, the teacher matters the most. And so just thinking about how can we use our tools, our intervention or readiness tools, but at the same time, maybe some small group, very targeted instruction to build those skills for students. And then this is just an example of what students have to read and understand. And it's frustrating if they're reading below level. So that's why we need K2, teaching them to read, 3 through 5, transitioning them to reading to learn, so that when they get to middle and high school, that they're able to at least read on grade level and go deeper with the content. So in the meantime, because we know we have only 57% or so on or above grade level, we can't just put text in front of our students and expect them to grapple with it comfortably. We have to think about what can we do to get students to access the text. And a lot of that is reading about it, thinking about it, and writing about it. And finally, this is a push to get the parent and community involvement in place. And students spend at least 20 to 30 minutes each evening engaged in something constructive, such as reading, writing, solving. They tend to perform at the 90th percentile or higher in terms of their proficiency rate. And so we want our parents and community to partner with us to be sure that our students are doing something cognitively productive after hours, at least Sunday through Wednesday or Monday through Thursday, that involves reading about it, writing about it, and solving, because those are real life skills. And I pretty much have summarized those practices. Okay. Thank you all. Next, I will invite Dr. Simpson, our Deputy of School Leadership and Improvement. He's excited.
Wish I had a teacher like Dr. I was looking at kids sitting in there with his hand raised. Well, that was a girl with hand raised. I don't know if I raised my hand. You know, every time I see that slide, I didn't learn how to drive that way based upon what you just shared with me. And I didn't teach my son how to drive that way. We went straight to quadrant D because he got behind the wheel, and I'm like, dude, we get on the expressway. First time behind the wheel, we got on the expressway. So I jumped straight to quadrant D. Thank you very much. It worked out. So under the vision of school leadership and improvement, and I don't want to be repetitive, Dr. Lee has mentioned in depth just much of what we're doing from the rigor of training, and some of you may have seen that in a number of schools that are embarking upon this initiative in our schools. Dr. Beasley talked about the high performance culture and climate, but the culture and climate training, some of you may have, in the pre-planning stages, your principals and your assistant principals, the leadership team, they're taking you through an in-service on what a day in the life of this school actually looks like. That was a part of the culture and climate training that the schools actually began to initiate a lot this year, because we want to make sure, always ask the question, what's most important, culture and climate or curriculum and instruction? And we have to have a culture and climate that's conducive to teaching and learning if we're actually going to have any type of curriculum and instruction or teaching and learning that's going to take place in our schools. Aspiring principals cohort, new principals inductions. Matter of fact, I think this week there's a meeting scheduled Thursday afternoon, if I'm not mistaken, about those that are aspiring or interested in becoming, or those who think they can lead. We want to make sure that we continue to provide opportunities for those who aspire to become leaders. I have a small litmus test that I'll typically share with people, and I'll share this with you all. You have to make the transition to leadership in your mind before you actually get the position. And here's how you make the transition. If you're a classroom teacher and within the four walls you're only concerned about your classroom students or the students in your classroom, then you're not there for leadership. But if you're concerned about all of the children in the entire building, then you have a leadership mindset. Secondly, if you step out in the hallway during class transition, like we ask teachers to do, particularly at the middle and high school, if students see you based upon your presence, and they may be thinking of going in the wrong direction or doing something inappropriate, just based upon your presence alone, they decide not to do it, then you have something that can't be taught and can't be trained. That's leadership. That's presence. It's command presence, and you've not opened your mouth. That's going to save you a whole lot of time. So just if you wanted to go back to your schools and kind of just, give yourself a test to see if you're really active, and maybe none of you in here are aspiring to be leaders, but if you want to, and you might be able to test some of those others and your colleagues that might be aspiring. Let them know, let them step out the hallway and see. And then professional learning communities. We have professional learning communities for elementary, middle, and high school principals. So they meet to discuss many topics and issues. What we try to do most times, and we don't always do it, but we always have it in mind and in the heart, if any decisions that we make, we want to bounce it off the principals. We want the principals to be able to bounce it off of you all, because you're doing the work, and we don't want to ever take that for granted, that your input is not important. Of course, we operate on a plan. You can't, failure to prepare is like preparing to fail. So we have to have a plan. We're led by a district improvement plan, and then of course you hear this acronym so often, the CCPS. District focus walks is something that, in conjunction with, CIA falls up under school leadership. But last year we put together a snapshot of focus walks where we actually go into our schools to see just a mere snapshot and a glimpse of the instructional practices that's taking place in the school, in the individual classrooms. And so we want to do that so we can go back and be able to identify if there are any deficiencies in any areas in which we need to provide some support. And that's how we keep our pulse on what's going on in the school, and we don't have to want to wait for any type of form of summative assessments to be able to provide that support. If we continue to involve and be engaged in what's going on in our schools all throughout the year, we'll have an idea as to what. And there are principals that may not be scheduled early on can even request that we come out. Principals don't have to wait for us to come. If they feel like there's something that they see through their interactions, their observations, then they can, call us out. And, we call ourselves, I guess a pseudo geek squad. We want to go in and we want to analyze and we want to, tear it apart and we want to put it back together. We want to leave that school with a prescription though and a plan for how they can improve. Probably heard a lot about, I've been hearing something about our dress code. About 10 years ago, the school board adopted a policy for dress code, and we're about to send out a survey to our stakeholders, and we want to involve and engage those and have some input about where we need to go with this. But I can say from a district perspective, we value, and it's important to us that students are dressed appropriately, regardless of whether it's a uniform or not. Because the uniform is just a pair of pants and a shirt, but it can also be worn inappropriately. Anything can be worn inappropriately, despite whether it's a uniform or not. So we want our children to dress appropriately. that you? I'm always making it hard for her father.
Always.
Not going.
But I'm prettier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good afternoon again, everyone. School choice. Many people think that school choice is really just magnet programs, and that is not the case. School choice is simply giving our parents and our students an option, making sure that they are able to choose the best educational atmosphere possible for their child. So many things within our school choice department, the pre-K lottery, we have a pre-K department that handles the curriculum, the instruction, but that is a school choice because the parents get to choose whether or not they want their children to enroll in a pre-K program and which pre-K program. And then student transfers. One that you all may be used to is the teacher or the employee student transfer. You're able to choose a school and apply for the school that you want your child to enroll. And then we also have the House Bill 251 and the hardship student transfer as well, which is a part of school choice. And then of course we have the magnet programs. We have some programs up there that you may not be familiar with. We are opening one new magnet program next school year in elementary, and that is at Lake Ridge. It's going to be a French dual language magnet program. And then we also are waiting on the board to vote for 2 high schools for next school year. They will vote on Tuesday for North Clayton High School, Early College, and then Charles R. Drew Medical Sciences Academy magnet program. And then, I already started this, didn't I? Okay, Arnold Elementary School, I'm moving ahead. Arnold Elementary School and Elite Scholars will begin a Cambridge Assessment International Education. If you are familiar with IB, and I tell this every single time, Cambridge is IB on steroids. But we're going to start publishing more information about Cambridge if you're interested in knowing exactly what Cambridge entails. The Jonesboro Middle School, Jonesboro High School, and Lee Street will begin their IB programs. Lee Street is already in its 2-year candidacy phase, and after the 2 years, they will apply for full IB. And we're going to phase in the other IB programs as the years go on. And then, of course, Rivers Edge Elementary School, the Chinese Dual Language Magnet. We did not post Charles R. Drew High School's program or North Clayton High School's program because it hasn't been approved by the board just yet. But please make sure that you visit the School Choice Department's website. On there you will see the dates for our School Choice Fair. We are going to add one more fair so that we have one on the central end of the county and then one on the north end. So be on the lookout for that one as well. And something that Dr. Beasley wanted me to mention to you all. We do have, for you that attended the meeting today, free tickets to our La Boheme Opera on September 23rd at 3 o'clock p.m. So if you want to attend and come and visit and enjoy, it's a collaboration between Clayton County Public Schools and Peach State Opera. So if you want your free tickets, you can see me after the meeting. You like that, don't you?
That's sweet.
Oh, Beyonce.
I'm not Jamie Wilson, but because we're a team. He asked me to share this one important thing, though. HR is developing, we have a cross-functional development to really zone in on teacher retention. And that's critical. That's critical to the organization, but I know without retention, first we have to make sure that we take care of you. We have to take care of our teachers. And to that point, the goal is to make sure that you are so satisfied in not only the profession, but the school and the leader and where you work that you share that with someone else. Because let's be honest, we talk about our experiences at work. But for the person or persons that you share that experience with, we want it to come across so excited and so enthusiastic that person, if they are educators, want to feel to be a part of that. You know, I've worked at a school where when a teacher left, they had found a replacement before they left. I mean, just think about that. You know, and the reason they did that because they had brought in so much to the organization that, and the program in which they had developed, that they didn't want to see that program go south or fail. it meant that much to them. So when we talk about teacher retention, we know it begins with us taking care of our employees, taking care of our teachers. But they are strategically putting some things in place so that they can address teacher retention, because if we don't retain our quality, high caliber, our dedicated teachers, then we don't want this revolving door here. And Dr. Wilson and HR has done a phenomenal job, from where we were last year to where we are this year. I mean, it's just amazing. And that speaks volumes to the leadership, i.e. Dr. Beasley, of course, and the number of things that we're doing and things that we're putting in place to make sure that our teachers are trained. So just look for that, look for more information in that regard. Thank you. Ms. Benson. Yeah, Ms. Benson.
I think I'm up.
Oh, you are. Okay. It's not me.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Emma Benton. I'm the Chief Financial Officer. So two things I want to highlight this afternoon that the business services team is working really hard on. Of course, we're working on a lot of different things, but two things I think that you guys may want to know. The first thing is that we're involved with a system implementation. So we talk a lot here about high performance and what it means to be high performance. So we're using a financial platform that's close to 30 years old. So as you can imagine, as technology has changed, our processes haven't changed too much because, it's very manual, and the platform that we use is outdated. So we're working on that, and we're planning to go live in January. With that, we're also going to semi-monthly payroll, and that's for everybody in the district, and that starts in January 2019. So those are the two things that I want to highlight. So the financial system is called MUNIS. It's pretty, it's very well known, I guess, in the school system and also government and state finances. That's pretty much it. In terms of the employee self-portal, you guys will hear more about that. That piece of payroll HR will go live in January. We're scheduled to have a very detailed training, and it's going to be an 8-week, I'll say, program. Of course, everybody won't be expected to be there, the entire 8 weeks, but we're going to be sending out a calendar very soon. And of course, your training could be anywhere from 4 hours to 8 hours. And so that schedule is being organized at this time.
And next we'll hear from Mr. Ronnie Joseph.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ronnie Joseph. I'm the Director of Construction, responsible for all capital improvements for the district, as well as the managing of the SPLOST dollars. For those of you that don't know what SPLOST is, it's a Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax. I know that's a mouthful, but what is for every dollar that's spent within the boundaries of Clayton County, a penny comes towards the capital improvements for the district. Past projects include the Elite Scholars Academy, the new East Clayton Elementary School, Stillwell School of the Arts, gymnasiums to all the high schools, HVAC improvements, renovations to past existing facilities. All that was funded through SPLOST dollars. For the upcoming school year, you look to see renovations to Jonesboro High School, Riverdale High School, the new K.R. Pace School of the Arts. We'll be at Adamson Middle School, Point South Middle School, Kilpatrick, Suter, Mount Zion, and Brown. All these things will be funded through using SPLOST dollars. SPLOST 5 will expire December of 2019, which leads us to SPLOST 6. On March 19, 2019, we'll go to the voters and asking for an extension of the SPLOST. The program includes a STEM elementary school, a STEM middle school, and a STEM high school, as well as a college and career academy. SPLOST 6 will be used to fund the one-to-one initiative to expand learning beyond the technology, basically, as Dr. Beasley alluded to, laptop for every child, as well as replacing buses. Again, SPLOST 6 will generate $280 million, and it will go from January 2020 to December 2024. Thank you. At this time, I'll pass the mic to Dr. Beasley.
So very quickly, you see we've gone through, try to get through very quickly. I do want Chief to share just a few things about security that would be relevant for you as teachers. And I believe Jada will share, I want her to share information about customer service, how important that is. So Chief, come and share a few things about safety and security that would be helpful for teachers to know. I don't think there's anything operational right now that we need to share, but then talk about the communications and government relations.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. You know, I want to go back to what Dr. Beasley mentioned during his initial presentation about everybody being responsible for safety, especially in light of the situation we just had Sunday. You know, no one expected to have a mass shooting at a gaming event, but yet still it occurred. And it caught individuals off guard because we weren't expecting anything like that to occur. So what we have to do is, even the most minute situation you see, or a situation that you think might not merit great attention, if you see something, say something. And I know, you know, we hear that cliche on television, and we see the FBI, from the FBI to the smallest municipality saying, see something, say something. But it's realistic, we need to do it, and we need to report it. And if we investigate it, it might not reveal anything. But it just might mitigate a situation that could really be detrimental to your schools, your classrooms, etc. So, additionally, you know, Dr. Beasley mentions quite often in the cabinet and the principals as well. You know, we speak about there are two types of employees, those who teach and those who support teachers. And I just want to go briefly over some of the things that we do to support you as teachers. And one are our safe school checks. You know, quite often individuals think, you know, we're doing the checks because we want to reveal drugs, etc. We're actually doing it because we want to keep weapons out of our schools. We don't want them on our campuses, we want them off the campuses. And we're going to start next month, ladies and gentlemen. We do this for the first semester and second semester, just so that we can make sure that they're unannounced. The students don't know when they're coming. Quite often, you all don't even, you're not apprised of when they're coming. But we do it to keep the weapons off campus. We also want to focus some attention on our gang awareness and our criminal procedure assembly, because we have seen that we have some gang activity, but it is decreasing. And we want to keep that going in that direction. We want to decrease the gang activity. And see something, say something. We actually have an application. You can go on, log on, it's anonymous, or you can provide your name. You can also drop photographs if you need to let us know what you've seen and what's going on within your school. We also, and I'm going to end here so that we can go ahead and proceed with the program. But one thing that we did was we sent all of our SROs to be nationally certified. That's really important because they learn other strategies, techniques, and they also learn more about ensuring that we have the skill sets to better support you when you have a crisis in your classroom. And I think that's vitally important so that we can pull those students out, talk to them, go through some peer mediation processes, go through conflict resolution, so that those students can come back to your class willing and prepared to learn. But those are just a few of the strategies that we're trying to do to increase safety and awareness in the schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Good afternoon again, everyone. So the communications department, we're actually focusing on 3 areas this particular school year. But one of the areas that I will choose to highlight per the superintendent is customer service. The other 2 will include communications and community engagement. And it's important for you to know that we we should all work together to make sure that we're sharing and exchanging information. I consider you as our ambassadors, our public relation staff, extended staff, to go and share the great things that you're doing respectfully within your schools and as a school district. But in terms of customer service, if I can get to it real quick here, we want to focus on 3 areas within that particular subtopic there, which is to establish protocols and procedures on behalf of the school district. In addition to extending our stakeholder surveys, many of you have received information from us during the previous school year, how we're doing, how can you rate our service, what can we do to expand our level of customer service, not only to you, to build morale and help support our initiatives and activities within the school district, and to expand our employee activities and initiatives. Already, the superintendent was gracious enough to, through networking and strengthening our partnerships and collaborating more effectively with our community partners, we hosted our first employee event that we partnered with the city of Jonesboro recently. Remember who attended the concert? Okay, you have others to participate in. We have a lot of activities that we're planning for you. But in terms of customer service, I think this became important after participating in a series of advisories last school year. And one of the things that we discovered is, and if we know it internally, then we know we have some work to do for our external stakeholders. It's just something so simple as to visiting various schools and exercising just common courtesy and respect for those who are relying on your service, particularly those that I say guard the front gate, the entrances, the office, the front office. They're the main lines of support to many stakeholders, and it's okay to be nice. It's okay to assist those who may be in need, and we are their clients. I mean, they are our clients, and we work for them. And I tell my team, I said, we consider each of you our clients, so we never say no. Maybe not now, but my goal is never to say no and to treat everyone with dignity and respect. And so we think it's an opportunity that we can work in collaboration with you to determine what those protocols should look like for the school district. And we certainly will be hearing work from the communications team and our superintendent as we work in collaboration to build what that should look like for us. But meanwhile, I thank you for your support. Many of you obviously reach out to us and tell us what we can do better, and I thank you for that, because constructive criticism always helps us to perfect our gifts and talents, and being able to make sure that we are mindful of the things that we do, that you rely on to do what you need to do every single day. So thank you for your participation today. Thank you for your feedback, and I'm going to turn this back over to our superintendent so we can entertain your questions.
So now we're at the point where we do some Q&A. So, Mike. So this is your opportunity to share, respond to what you may have heard, to share ideas, ask questions. The goal is really to establish some coherence so that we're all hearing the same thing, we're headed in the same direction.
Good evening. Beasley Elementary. I'm a fifth grade teacher, for my freshman. First, I have a suggestion. As far as we received at Beasley Elementary, a load of information when we came back from vacation. Many resources, which are great. However, I was wondering that in the future, for those teachers who have signed their contracts and are coming back, if it's possible that we have that information before we leave, because it's an overload and we received it maybe on Friday or Wednesday and school starts on Monday. And I hate to feel like I'm unprepared. So that would be one suggestion, if possible, that we release that so we can be prepared. Also, as far as teacher retention, I would first ask that, or suggest that HR work with the area superintendents to see how many teachers are leaving and how long have these teachers been with us, and determine, okay, well, maybe we need to interview these teachers, because there's a lot of teachers leaving from this one school, which should be a red flag waving. Also, I love the fact that we have so many PDs. I take full advantage of them. However, there seems to be it seems to be that everybody is not on the same page. You may receive even district training during pre-planning even, and you go back to your school and they're telling you something different than what the district told us. So now we're in a situation where who do we listen to? What's the right information? And now we're confused even more.
So, I want to respond by saying, I'm going to always take teachers back to their principal. So, you mentioned 3 issues in particular. The first one was the release of information. And so we did start a new strategic plan this year that had something to do with information that was shared. Because it was effective July this year, you all didn't come back until the end of July, beginning of August. So we'll take a little responsibility for that. So we'll be better next year as we end the next year, because notice we're not adding on initiatives. We're just going deeper with the work that we're doing. But I would always say, and that's why every principal should work with their team, because sometimes you don't have to get everything the first week in pre-planning. Sometimes you just got to plan out the content. And so I would say always work with your principal, and that's the work that we want principals to do, work with their teachers and staff to figure out how to plan out some things. The second area you mentioned was retention, and so we do have some schools that are doing perfectly fine. Teacher retention is not an issue at all. And we know it has a lot to do with the culture of the school. And we have identified schools where there are issues. And so instead of making everybody go through this process of dealing with retention, we go specifically to those schools, to those principals. And we place a lot of that responsibility on the role of the principal. That's just our expectation. And so we appreciate that idea. And you're right, we are looking at the data to see those who do leave, how many years were they with the organization, because that tells us a lot as well. And then lastly, you said schools are not on the same page, so we'll work to see, because part of our monthly meeting with administrators is to ensure that we have that coherence. We are on the same page. If there are conflicting messages, we need to know where those conflicts occur so we can mitigate for that and get everybody on the same page, okay? But I would always say, feel comfortable, you should feel comfortable sharing those concerns with your principal in the event that, or let's say the curriculum person, if it's a curriculum related, let them have a conversation with Dr. Lee so we can ensure that we're all on the same page. Our goal is to support you as teachers and to ensure that you have the information that you need to have. But we realize it's not going to all get done in one day. Now it takes time. And so we also realize that sometimes one message that we may have shared may have been misinterpreted and may come across differently from someone else. That happens in the transmission of information. But that's why we have these type of platforms. So we can ensure that if we do have some miscommunication through the transmission process, that we can self-correct and mitigate for that, okay?
Hello, my name is Crystal Gary, and I'm actually here representing a teacher from North Clayton High School. One of the suggestions is around access. So this meeting, and again, since you've come in, I have been a part of many of the advisory council meetings, so I just applaud you on being available and accessible. But specifically as it relates to the teacher advisory, this time frame is not advantageous for high school in that they don't get out until 4:30. So just thinking about traffic and getting here. I didn't have any specific updates, but several of the high school teachers just felt like there isn't a forum for them to be a part of the conversation. And another suggestion was to possibly rotate these throughout the county so that we as teachers and instructors can truly understand the environments and scopes around our county so that we can see how we want life.
Good evening, Mr. Tidwell, TVES Kent Primary. My situation is what used to be policy, but from my understanding is no longer. This is as far as substitute teaching. Now, throughout the last 2 years or so, we had a list of preferred subs that would come to our school sub, especially with paraprofessionals out. Now I understand that retired teachers can no longer sub for paraprofessionals, which of course is putting a strain on my particular classroom, pre-K, because my para is out. It's hard getting the sub as is, but now we cut off the whole group of subs who are more than willing to come and sub in our particular classroom because there's special needs. The kids, they have certain needs that they were more than willing to come, but now, if my para's out, I'm at the mercy of hoping to get a sub, which puts our classroom at strain. Occasionally, if there's something emergency, administration would grab a, say, a kindergarten paraprofessional to come into my classroom. Of course, kindergarten class is now short. So I would suggest that if possible, can the old rules apply where retired teachers can come and sub as paraprofessionals?
I don't know if HR is not here to respond to that. I'll have to check on that. I hadn't heard that.
They said they got letters that said that they can only take teacher jobs now and not paraprofessional jobs.
Yeah, we'll check on that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Hello again, Dr.
Hello.
Beasley. I feel like I see you so much.
I hope that's a good sign.
You know I'm always going to come and represent my wonderful DES department. I'm Ms. Collins at Kent Primary and work alongside with Ms. Tidwell. Because our vision simply states that we are a district of high performance, and our vision is to prepare all students to live and compete, your special education students are no less. However, I continue to advocate for them in this manner. Your case managers, your resource teachers are doing two dual jobs that are very critical for those children to be able to live and compete and be successful. This quarter, we unveiled the new Goal IEP system, which all of us are learning so rigorously, but it has tugged at my heart and has pulled me in to say this to you today. I have to get this casework done to keep us in compliance. FTE, our student IEPs, these are legal documents that must be done. But the pull is away from, the pull in me, and probably other resource teachers that you may not be aware of, is it takes us away from students. And my first priority as a teacher is my students. And I wish I would not have to struggle so much with that, because case management is essential and it's very important, but so is having those students show what they can do performance-wise. And that's my gift, that's my talent. And I just don't get to spend as much time doing it as I would wish or I would want. I said to my compliance specialist, we can't be 100% in both jobs. I would like to be, but it's almost impossible, because it's either 100% as your case manager or I'm 100% as your teacher. So if we would please look at other counties to see how they are getting this done by separating those two jobs where a case manager and teacher are working together, so that student performance amongst exceptional students is also increasing.
Well, and that's a good point, and we have looked at other models. We come from other models that are working pretty well. For whatever reason, Clayton County did not shift, and a lot of folks shifted to lead teachers of special ed who are basically doing the case management while teachers are teaching. And so that's a funding implication, but we are moving in that direction. And we believe, I know. We believe that will help us once we move in that direction, but we're just trying to make sure fiscally that we can sustain it. As you well know, because once you bring on those additional positions, for 1 year, you got to sustain it year after year, right? If not, you just frustrate people by having it 1 year, not having it the next year. And so that's what we're working to do. But we believe, as you have seen other models at work, we have seen other models at work, and we know what's best. And we also know that part of the challenge we're having with recruiting special ed teachers is because of that dual capacity, that case management and instruction, and both are very important, aren't they? But it's very difficult because, special ed and IEPs, that's a lot of paperwork. And then you gotta not just write the IEP, you gotta monitor the IEP, don't you? You gotta document processes, don't you? And so we are aware of that, and we are working with the DES department. We have, we're bringing on some additional compliance individuals, but we're also working over time to create this role, as we like to call lead teachers, that can really help with that case management. So we hear you. We're moving in that direction. I wish we could go a little faster though.
I promise I'm coming, sir, since I'm already back there, I'm trying to address these questions and move forward.
Okay.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am an ESOL teacher at Unidos, and my background is special ed, so I'm glad you asked that question. And I have several questions, but I'll try to get in as many as I can. My first question, though, being that our strategic plan says that 80% is our goal for proficient or distinguished, I'd like to know if those special ed and English learners continue to be included in our data.
Well, when we say all students, we mean exactly that. Miss Chriselle Anecki knows that I mean that too. She served as one of my high school teachers when I was a high school principal.
Okay.
So she just wanted to hear me say that she knows, she knew the answer to that.
Strange things.
Yes, ma'am.
So the other question, get to it. Why did we not vote on the school calendar?
Oh, our policy of that to you. There are not many districts that actually vote on school calendars. And so the school calendar, honestly, I've seen it where it's voted upon, and it doesn't change from year to year very much, so it's really not much to vote on. We got to decide on how many days. There are 180 instructional days, 10 additional days for professional learning. We have pre-planning, we have post-planning, and we try to schedule some days in between the year. And so it's really, once we develop it, it's really not much to vote on. We're not interested in moving to a year-round calendar right now. We've got one school that is kind of on a semi-year-round calendar, but that's not even year-round. They just kind of space out their instructional days to start earlier than most schools. And so there's really nothing to vote on. And then we have to tweak it sometimes because of we made a recommendation to the board to tweak the calendar for this year so we can end school on Thursday instead of Friday so we can have graduations once we got the venue for the graduations. So that's one reason we don't vote. If we had a litany of options, a vote would be great, but we really don't have a litany of options for the school calendar. So I think that would be an unwise use of all of our time and voting, and we just frustrate us because we don't have any options.
Hello, Dr. Beasley. I'm Ms. Carroll from Riverdale Elementary, kindergarten teacher. I wanted to ask about something that I brought up to you last school year about the Infinite Campus for students. I noticed that there still isn't an Infinite Campus icon for them to get into for them to see their own grades in their student portals.
That was intended for the lower grade levels?
For all grade levels.
Oh, and they're in the students, when the students log in, I want to make sure I'm clear.
Yeah.
I remember we had this conversation.
Yeah. I was talking specifically for the lower grades.
Specifically, tell me which grade, so I can, because I think I had this conversation with the technology department.
Elementary K-5.
K-5.
Yeah. Now, what I'm hearing from the high school students is that they have access to their Infinite Campus, but they're using their parents. They're logging in as their parents, and that's how they get access. So they're really the ones that are accessing it, and their parents, they may or may not. But with elementary kids, they don't have that kind of savvy where they can do it as their parents. And I would not even think to ask them to do that. But they do need to have access to their own grades. That would make it a lot easier for me as a teacher not to have to write out all their grades, or, you know, it just makes, or print out a report for each student, you know, when you have a lot of them. And it also gives them more responsibility for their grade, how they're doing. So if there were an icon, you know, if they had access to their Infinite Campus grades, to Infinite Campus, that would make it a lot easier for them to keep track of how they're doing when grades are posted. And another added benefit of that would be that parents who, I have a hard time getting parents to sign up for Infinite Campus and to check on their grades and to do that in these lower grades. Very few of my parents do. But if it were in the student's portal, you know, when I give them assignments that they can access at home, that would also give them access to doing it rather than having to sign up a different way.
Okay, I don't have to go and search, I don't know why, but I want to say that I was informed that other kids do have access to it.
They do not.
But we'll go back and check.
They do not.
And honestly, my children had Infinite Campus, and
Mine did too.
they had access across the board, I think. They were older. No, I don't want to say even in elementary school, but we'll check on it, okay?
All right, good afternoon,
Good
Dr.
afternoon.
Beasley. This is Michelle Horton-Long. I am the EIP teacher at Church Street Elementary. My question is, okay, so I guess to piggyback off what Ms. Collins said, I've worked with Ms. Collins and Ms. Tidwell before. I've been a DBS teacher, general ed teacher, and now I'm back EIP. My question for you is there a plan for the county to add additional support for teachers and students regarding the MTSS process? I know other counties have positions for SST facilitators and chairs. And I guess from being a DES teacher, I feel that the missing link is we don't have support for the teachers who have students that need different interventions and things done. We've increased classroom size, it's hard for them to reach the students. Sometimes teachers aren't having meetings with students. And so, unfortunately, by the time they get to a higher level, higher grade, it's become an emergency. And this student is in fifth grade. They're reading on a kindergarten level. What was done with this child all of these years before? And I think it's not that the primary teachers don't want to do it. I think that they are overwhelmed, and that we need to have a position for somebody to help them, to give them interventions, to kind of track, are you having your meetings, to just see so that the students won't fall in between the cracks. I know at my school now they're putting over that it's hard for me to help support the teachers the way that they need to be supported while I'm still being held accountable for teaching my kids. So I feel like there should be some kind of position where we support our teachers and our students so that it doesn't end up being the same thing over and over and over again.
So that's a good question, and I think that's similar to the special ed question. This is a challenge, and you should be aware. When we bring on positions like that are not teaching positions, they don't earn funding. And so that means I gotta have a pretty nice sustainable fund balance in order to pay for these positions over a period of what? Time. We're still raising, we're in a position where, we had to cut the budget last year, so we're trying to raise up our fund balance. But even once we get the savings where it ought to be, we gotta be careful, because let's say I decide to give at least every school one of those positions that you described. That would be 60 positions, right? Times about $80,000. I've got to sustain that unless I do it one year, then I basically say we can't do it the next year. And that again frustrates people. And so all of these, just remember, there are some positions, like teaching positions, we earn funding. The state funds those positions. But there are some positions that outside of the classroom, we will not earn funding. That sounds like one of those positions, and therefore the district, we can commit to that, but we just need to be in a fiscal place, a strengthened fiscal place, so we could commit to it initially and sustain our commitment to that. So
I would just say, I even heard today while having an access team, another teacher came and APS has a position. Why won't they allow you to do this full time? Or you just hear, I can't do it, I don't have the time, I need support. I mean, it would help with the teacher retention if they felt somebody was there to support
we hear
them.
you. We have that on our list. We're looking at a few additional support positions at the campus level. I just want you to know, they mentioned APS. APS has a whole lot of businesses that pay a lot of taxes. Unlike Clayton, does that make sense? It all matters.
But Ed does it as well, the CAD, schools.
And they have probably, the CAD has a great tax base too. I've been there. Fayette, I don't really know about that situation. But we're not saying we can't do it. We just got to make sure, like I said, we got to fund those positions over time because we won't earn money. So we got to build up our fund balance. So let's say it costs me $10 million to do that the first year. That's $10 million I've got to pay out of that I don't earn from the state every year. Does that make sense? So we just want to make sure it's sustainable. We can get there, just can't get there until you build up that savings account. Okay, but good point. That's similar to the special ed issue. We're going to get there. It's got to get where we need to get fiscally in order to get there.
Good afternoon, Dr. Beasley. I have two questions. My first question deals with the curriculum. Has any thought been given to installing pathways in middle school similar to other districts, which would, I feel as a teacher, I'm Mr. Binion at Forest Park Middle School, I'm a math instructor, will help us achieve higher performance and help retain students? That's my first question. And with math scores, with the 8th grade math milestone score, it's being used as a cutoff to determine if students are placed in foundations or Algebra 1. Is the district considering advocating for math teachers to have a similar score for students coming from elementary school that are either significantly below or on grade level, so we can have tracks for them also?
Well, that's a good question. We try to get away from the tracking conversation, but I'll answer the first question relative to the middle school pathways. All of our middle schools today have specials and they have career tech courses. I'll tell you where we are with the career technology at the middle school level as well as the high school level. We've got some areas that are basically outdated, which means people are trained in areas, but the jobs in the future are not even in those areas. And so this year is our year to have some very honest and make some very critical decisions relative to pathways. And that would, of course, include middle school and high school. So you'll see more progress this year. We want people to kind of get trained up or retooled if they want to teach certain courses, but we can't just keep teaching courses and basically the job labor data tells us that those jobs no longer exist. We just can't keep doing that. So this year will be a very critical year, transitional year for us in that regard. relative to the math, two philosophies. We're trying to get our kids, more kids finishing the 12th grade with calculus, which would be important, right? Which means that we want them prepared to enter middle school, of course, so they can take 8th grade algebra by the 8th grade. We had that conversation today as well. And so we're going to look at our criteria. The challenge that I have is because I don't like exclusionary practices. I want kids to get access. And so our work, all of our work for all of us in here, is to provide equity and equity and access. So we want to make sure kids get the support that they need. Because oftentimes, it's not that the kids don't want to do it, that they don't have the ability and the skill sets to do it. But for whatever reason, it could be instruction, and the kid is penalized for something that's beyond his or her control. And so we got to balance that. We want to make sure that we provide good instruction, that we have support to students, and that we also ensure that they're prepared for those more accelerated pathways. Or if it's not even accelerated, that they can access the content so they can get to algebra by the 8th grade, so they can have the opportunity, if they so choose to complete at least calculus by the time they graduate from high school. And so those are conversations we're having. As a matter of fact, I want to say we're scheduling a meeting to look at the math pathway from 6th grade to 12th grade to see what do we need to do differently to prepare the kids and to get more of our kids prepared and taking that 8th grade algebra. So more to come in that area, but as you know, we got to keep building up that K-5 math experience as well, so they can, acceleration means sometimes in 1 year you may take 6th and 7th grade content. And it's pretty fast paced.
Dr. Beasley, may I add, Mr. Benny, congratulations on having some of the highest growth this year at Forest Park. You were acknowledged in AJC, Forest Park High School, middle school. And I want to go back to Dr. Simpson's point about leadership, because Mr. Benny, you could foster a vertical collaboration with your feeder elementary schools, even if it's just starting with the 5th grade teachers, talking to them about the skills that students are coming to middle schools lacking and where they can emphasize or place priorities and just utilizing the resources that are available, especially in the math curriculum, those learning tasks that you even mentioned at the training last week. So that may be a leadership opportunity for you to bridge that gap, and then we can spread that across the district. Informally. Yes, informally. So at your department meetings, do you meet K-12? Do you have your elementary department leads at the meetings? Because I was thinking that may be a platform to sit with your feeder department leads, but we'll have conversations, and I'll take that back to the team.
I think one of the best things you have right now, you have some tools, like we know where the kids are in reading and in math. We've got the iReady tool. If we really leverage that tool, we can really accelerate and ramp these kids up to be prepared for the middle school math, to be prepared for that 8th grade Algebra 1 experience, so they can go to high school with Algebra 1 already under their belt. And so I would say, as Dr. Lee said, work with your feeders, but look at your data, figure out who the kids are, figure out what skills they need, and then collaborate and plan accordingly. You'll notice that if you look at your feeder data, that there are some consistent areas that they're not doing well in. Those are instructional implications. What can we do to shore up those areas and to start addressing and improving those areas? Okay. All right. Okay. One other question.
As a 5th grade teacher, you said Jonesboro Middle, correct? You Jonesboro? He's Forest Park. Okay. Well, I know we feed into Jonesboro Middle. But as a 5th grade teacher, a lot of students come to us at a severely low level. And in 5th grade, it's like, now they want us to learn work a miracle. And we looking at 4th grade, 3rd grade, like, where y'all at? And we don't see on our end the accountability. All we're held and what we're told is what the district looks at it from class to your class. Instead of this is where they were in August and this is where they ended up at the end of GMAS, this is where they showed growth. And it can be discouraging. I have no control over who comes to my classroom or who registers in the school. All I can do is what I'm capable of doing. But at the same time, everybody needs to be held accountable. There's no way that a child should come to me in their 5th grade and they're reading on a kindergarten level. I'm sorry, it don't start with me. It starts with 4th grade, 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 1st grade. All I'm doing is working with what I have. And I'm asking as a teacher, because we go home and we cry when we fail. I'm asking that there be some accountability on every single level. There's no paperwork, there's nothing. And that's not fair to the babies. It's not. And so I understand exactly where he's coming from. You get them in their middle school and you're like, what is elementary do?
Well, that's a good point, and we want you to know, first I want to clear up a misconception. We are holding principals accountable for doing just that. And so, for example, we notice in our data that we have some schools at the beginning of the year, or when the students come to them, those kids are reading on or above grade level. At the end of the year, they're reading below grade level. Is that a student problem? No, it isn't. And so we are looking at that. Our Deputy for School Leadership and Improvement, Curriculum and Instruction, we're working, we've identified those schools, we'll be meeting with those principals, and it's the expectation that they hold everyone accountable, that they provide support, and that they use the tools that we have to get those kids where they need to be throughout the year. Sometimes it's just people not working strategically. You'd be amazed that a lot of the kids who are almost proficient, they're just right below it. 1 or 2 skills that we identified and we strategically, intentionally worked on those skills, those kids will be right where you need them to be. But guess what? It goes back to leadership, doesn't it? It's like it comes back to me as the superintendent. It goes back to the leadership out of school, where you've got to be working with all of your grade level teams, and they've got to be working vertically. You know, if you know the 3rd grade teachers should be working with the 2nd grade teachers. The 4th grade teachers should be working with the 3rd grade teachers to figure out what are the gaps and what do we need to do to address those gaps and to shore up instruction in whatever areas we need to do that. That is our work. I wish I could say it was always easy, but it's not. But it's necessary to do it that way. The middle schools should be working with the elementary schools. The high schools should be working with the middle schools. If you've not been in a conversation with your feeder schools or your feeder grades or the grade levels that feed into your grade or the prior grade, then you've not had a complete set of conversations. That's our work, and we've got to be very strategic and intentional about that. But we are looking at the data, and we're having this conversation with principals to ensure that they're looking at the data and they're having the right conversation with their various grade level teams to provide support, but also to provide that accountability. Because what we're seeing is when kids start on grade level, with a particular teacher or grade level, but they regress, that's not the children's problem. That's an adult problem. And we, as the adults, we can fix that, and we are working to address that.
What is the purpose, per se, of all kids that are low on your intensive, all your classes together? You got all the DES, you got all the kids.
You have all your gifted inside the classroom. I moved from K to 4th, and I went to a different school. I'm Cynthia Hathaway. I'm at Manera Elementary now. I came from Swin, 17 years. And the classroom that I had, you had all your intensive kids. You had your DESs fighting, kicking, doing all types of things. Yet instruction must go on. We're looking for kids to grow. So I guess it's something that has to relate to budget per se, or how funding. It doesn't have to
Every
do with funding or
principal,
anything?
every principal's trained in how to group kids and how they assign kids. That's a philosophy. You can either group kids homogeneously or heterogeneously. Homogeneously based on, clearly by grade level, but beyond grade level, by performance levels, by skills, etc. Principals make those decisions. Okay, we don't have a set rule. Dr. Beasley's not telling principals put all the low-performing kids in this class. It's a strategy, but I tell you what, if you do that, you got to be very intentional and purposeful about it. And you got to have a pretty good teacher who understands every child, who knows how to manage that very complex situation. There are pros and cons to it as well. You know, it's great when you have all the kids on one level because then you can just plan for that one level and raise them all up. It's a little more challenging when you have a class where you have various levels, as that slide you showed earlier, because you got to plan for the diversity of levels, right? So there's no silver bullet. There are various models, there are various philosophies, but each one has its pros and its what? Its cons, and you got to plan and mitigate for those cons. And it sounds like you're dealing with, in that situation you just described, you dealt with the con. That was a philosophy, but I want you to know that those are leadership decisions. Someone made a decision to schedule those kids in such a fashion. I'm not saying it was the right or the wrong decision. Nonetheless, it was a decision. The question is what type of support and training and resources did they wrap around that decision? That's an important question. Okay.
Dr. Beasley, I have one other question. As members of the advisory committee, what would be two initiatives or ideas that you would want the advisory committee members to promote or advocate as we go back to our schools?
Well, that's a good question. I think as I listen to what you all have shared today, and initially given us work to do relative to additional resources and people to help with the issues that I heard described with the MTSS process and DES, I would really want us as advisory to go back and close the instructional gaps. As you alluded to. See, I know we've got teachers doing it, but it makes it so much difficult when your colleague doesn't understand that they're having a negative impact on your student, on the kids. I know y'all teachers are very professional and y'all like a little gang at times. Y'all stick together. Y'all know it. You stick together. We stick together. But you better go back and have some honest conversations with each other. There's no sense in all the kids growing in 3rd grade and somehow in 4th grade they regress. And now when they come to 5th grade, everybody expects all the 5th grade teachers to make up 2 years. Don't allow that. So you all have got to have with your principals those conversations, those honest conversations about where are we with the data and what are we going to do relative to our practices to improve those outcomes. So I would say you have the high impact practices, focus and have good conversations about that. And number 2, relative to that or related to that is focus on that rigor and relevance. You got to get everybody teaching at some point consistently in that quadrant D. You got to get everybody doing it. Everybody. It can't be the case, and you all know sometimes the data you got, let's say you got 5 teachers on a grade level, 3 improve but 2 don't. It's hard sometimes to see the improvement that the 3 made because of the what? The 2. We got to get those 2 what? Coached up. So everybody can see the efforts of the 3 and really the efforts of all 5. We got to get to a point in our district where it's not about personality, but it's about having the tough conversations to move our students forward. If it's among the grade level, have those tough conversations. It is okay. If it's between grade levels, have those tough conversations. It is okay to do that. But look at your data. Don't make it personal. Let the data guide the work. That's what I would say. That's it? Thanks, everyone.